Hi, it's Jenkins here, the family law vlogger. This is the next in the stages of divorce vlog. What we're talking about at the moment is filling in the Form E, which is the financial disclosure form, whether that's for mediation or voluntary discussions between solicitors or with your partner or for the court process. We've got to the stage of what's called the back pages. Solicitors often call them the back pages. And the first of these sections is about income needs. It's a section that is looking at what your income needs are going both now and potentially going forward. Sometimes also referred to as completing a budget or a schedule of expenditure. Now, if you have a Form E from your solicitor or mediator, or you've downloaded one, then there'll often be a list, a budget of all the different lines of expenditure that you might be expected to include in a schedule of expenditure. And that's probably a good place to start. It also possibly has an actual expenditure and a future expenditure. So it's probably best to start with your current actual estimated expenditure. Sometimes there's a column for monthly expenditure and annual. Probably best to start with monthly because it can get your head around it a bit more. So if you have a look at that list or you print it off the internet, it'll have different categories of financial expenditure. So it'll have household things in one category. So think about it monthly. There'll be mortgage, there'll be things like gas, electricity, council tax. If you're in rented accommodation, then rent, service charges and certain types of accommodation, etc. So there'll be a big long list in that section of all the different types of expenditure. Think in the monthly column about how much you spend per month on that expenditure. It may be you don't know. It may be that your partner deals with all of those aspects and you don't know, in which case that's what you might have to put. But start with the household expenditure. Those tend to be the more fixed costs. Then there are further sections for things like car running costs, MOT, estimate of petrol, how much it costs to service the car each year. Again, you may have those details to be able to estimate it on a monthly basis, thinking about how many times a year you have your car serviced, what the service tends to cost, or it may be you don't have that expenditure and you're going to need to help either get some information about that from your partner, or your solicitor is going to help you with that, or potentially a financial advisor. There are then other sections more of the personal expenditure, so clothing, haircuts, toiletries, pharmacies, all of those sorts of things. And then there's a section about other household costs, so how much you spend on food, other items of the house, cleaners, gardeners, anything else in that sort of topic area. So break it down into those bite-sized chunks and have a think about your expenditure month by month. If you have children, there's a separate topic area or a separate breakdown in the schedule of expenditure, children's expenditure. That might include school fees. It might just include their day-to-day costs of looking after the children and their share of things like, for example, our holiday costs. So break it down into those bite-sized chunks and have a look and see what it totals. Now, it's always important. It's difficult to start with a blank sheet of paper, but you have to start with a blank sheet of paper and then see what figure you end up with as a total. Then what you need to do is you need to think about it as a cross-check against what your income is. So if your expenditure is a lot more than you know your income's been, or you and your partner's combined income has been, then that might be an indicator to review the budget again. Equally, if it's a lot less than your combined expenditure, then you might need to think about that too. So there is an element of tactics, perhaps it's a bit too much of a strong word, but actually trying to inject a bit of realism compared to what your expenditure's been or your normal income has been. Now, it could be that actually the best place to start for filling in a budget or a schedule of expenditure is for you to have a go at it. Your solicitor may ask you to do so. The mediator may ask you to do so. It could be that it's something you need to sit down and do with your solicitor, depending on the complexity of your income and your expenditure, and whether, for example, you have several properties or don't have much visibility on some of your expenditure. It could also be something that's actually much easier for you to get financial advice to help you with. So it could be that you have a financial advisor who's helped you with budgeting and cash flow in the past. They may be really a good place to start with a budget. Or it could be that your solicitor could put you in touch with an IFA who could work with you to produce the schedule of expenditure, perhaps from an analysis of your credit card statements, your bank statements, so there's some actual basis and actuals to the actual figures that you're putting in. So think about the others that can support you with the budget stage, particularly if you've got complicated assets or income. And finally, I would say about your budget, it is an area that you should get advice from your solicitor on before you put it into either the court or into a mediation process, because what your assessment of your budget and your income needs is going to be really important when there's a consideration of what the overall financial settlement should be, whether that's something you're agreeing in mediation directly between the two of you or through a court process. So I think this is an area that you should get advice on, even if you've done the preliminary work yourself. So that's the income needs section of the Form E. We'll touch in the next vlog on the capital section. But for now, if there's any more information or advice that you need, and on the vlog we can only give general information and guidance, but if there's any more specific advice that you need on schedule of expenditure or anything else in the family law field, then please do contact me or one of my specialist colleagues in the family and children team at Mills Reeve, and the details will be underneath this vlog. Thank you.